A great station hung in the void like a massive metal flower. Nexus Prime was the heart of galactic civilization, home to the council that ruled over 847 different species. Inside its gleaming halls, Ambassador Ji-Woo Kim walked with steady steps, though her heart pounded in her chest. She knew this day would change everything. Captain Day One Park stood behind her, his military uniform crisp and clean. His hand rested near his sidearm, a habit from 20 years of service. Lieutenant Hana Lei flanked their other side, her eyes scanning the alien dignitaries that filled the chamber. Most of them looked at the human delegation with cold, calculating stares. The council chamber was vast. Thousands of seats rose in circular tiers, each filled with representatives from across the galaxy. At the center sat the Council Prime, an ancient being called Vector. His scales were deep purple, and his eyes held the weight of centuries. Beside him sat Enforcer Quillix, whose insectoid features made it impossible to read his expression. Ji-Woo approached the speaking platform. The silence was heavy and threatening. She had served Earth for 30 years, always believing that diplomacy could solve any problem. Today would test that belief like never before. Ambassador Kim, Vector's voice boomed through the chamber. You stand accused of violating Galactic Law 17. Your species has developed prohibited technologies. How do you answer? Ji-Woo lifted her chin. The technologies in question are for defense only. Earth has the right to protect itself. A wave of angry sounds filled the chamber. Clicks, growls, and strange musical tones all mixed together. The aliens were not happy. Defense? Quillix leaned forward. You have built weapons that could destroy planets. You have created artificial minds that think faster than any organic being. These are not defensive tools. These are the weapons of conquerors. We have conquered no one, Ga-Woo said firmly. For 50 years, humanity has followed every council law. We have paid our tribute. We have opened our borders. We have done everything asked of us. Vector raised one clawed hand, and silence fell instantly. 50 years is nothing. Some species here have followed council law for 10,000 years. You are children playing with fire. The council exists to prevent chaos. We maintain order. We keep peace. By controlling everyone, Day One muttered, just loud enough for Ji-Woo to hear. Vector's eyes fixed on the captain. You have something to say, human warrior? Day One stepped forward before Ji-Woo could stop him. I said you maintain control, not peace. There's a difference. The chamber exploded with noise again. Hana's hand moved to her weapon. Ji-Woo felt her stomach drop. Captain, she whispered urgently, but Day One continued. We've studied the histories you allowed us to see. We know about the other junior species. We know what happened to them when they refused to stay weak. You broke them, scattered them, erased some completely. Those species threatened galactic stability, Vector said coldly. They were corrected. Corrected, Day One repeated. That's an interesting word for genocide. The chamber fell silent. Ji-Woo closed her eyes. They had agreed not to mention the forbidden histories. They had agreed to play by the council's rules one more time. But Day One had never been good at following rules he thought were wrong. Vector stood slowly. His massive form towered over the assembly. You dare speak of genocide? You, whose species has slaughtered billions of your own kind. You, who poisoned your own world and nearly destroyed yourselves before reaching the stars. You dare judge us? We judge ourselves harshly for our past, Ji-Woo said quickly, trying to regain control. That's why we try to be better. That's why we built these technologies to protect not just ourselves, but any species that might need help someday. Noble words, Quillix said. But words mean nothing. Actions speak truth. You have broken our laws. Now you face our justice. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, beautiful and blue. Then it showed Mars colony, with its dome cities gleaming in the red dust. Then it showed all 23 human settlements across 3 star systems. The Council has reached a decision, Vector announced. Humanity will undergo technological castration. All advanced weapons will be surrendered. All artificial intelligences will be destroyed. All quantum drives will be disabled. Your ships will be limited to sublight speeds. Your worlds will be monitored permanently. You can't do this, Yiwu said, her voice shaking now. We are a sovereign species. Sovereignty is earned, not given, Vector replied. You have 30 days to comply. Any resistance will be met with corrective force. This decision is final. Day One's communicator buzzed quietly. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. He showed the screen to Ji Woo. The message was from Earth Command, encrypted and marked urgent. Do not comply. Prepare for war. Ji Woo looked up at Vector. If we refuse... The ancient alien's expression was impossible to read. Then you will be corrected, like all the others who defied the natural order. Your species is young and foolish. You have potential, which is why we offer this mercy. Accept our terms. Live under our guidance. Refuse and face extinction. Hannah leaned close to Day One. Sir, I'm reading military vessels moving into position around the station. Council enforcers. At least 50 ships. Day One nodded slightly. He looked at Ji Woo, and she saw the question in his eyes. She had spent her life building bridges. He had spent his preparing for battles. Now they both knew which path they were on. Ji Woo turned back to Vector. We need time to discuss this with our government. You have 30 days, Vector said. Use them wisely. This council session is concluded. As the human delegation walked out of the chamber, Day One spoke quietly. They were always going to do this. The moment we became strong enough to matter. I know, Yiwu said sadly. I just hoped we could prove them wrong. Hoped we could show them a better way. Maybe we still can, Hannah said. Just not the way they expect. They boarded their shuttle in silence. As Nexus Prime shrank behind them, Day One looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, Earth was preparing for the fight of its existence. A council had drawn a line. Now humanity would have to decide whether to cross it. The age of diplomacy was over. What came next would be written in fire and blood. Admiral Hyan Ki Choi stood before the holographic display, watching as red icons multiplied around human space. Each icon represented a council warship. There were hundreds of them now, and more arrived every hour. His jaw was tight, his hands clasped behind his back in a posture he had held for 40 years of military service. They're boxing us in, said Governor Taeyang-won through the communication link. His face appeared on one of the screens, transmitted from Mars colony. 3 council battle groups just entered Mars orbit. They're not even pretending this is a friendly visit. Dr. Unisong stepped forward, her tablet glowing with data. She was younger than most people in the room, barely 40, but her mind was considered the brightest in human space. Admiral, we need to make a decision. Project Prometheus is ready. Give the word, and we can deploy within hours. Not yet, Hyan Ki said quietly. Once we start, there's no going back. On Earth, the United Government was in emergency session. Politicians argued back and forth, their voices rising in panic and anger. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to run, to take every ship humanity had and flee into the unknown reaches of space. Captain Day One's ship, the Resilience, docked at Earth's primary orbital station. He made his way directly to the Admiral's command center, not bothering to clean up from the long journey. Ambassador Ji Woo came with him, though she looked like she had aged 10 years in the past week. "Report," Hyan Ki said as they entered. Day One pulled up images from their diplomatic mission. "They mean to break us, sir. This isn't about laws or peace. Vector as much as admitted it. They see us as a threat." "We are a threat," Yuna said. She activated her tablet and projected an image into the center of the room. 3 years ago, we discovered something on Mars. Ancient ruins buried deep under the polar ice. We've been studying them in secret. The image showed stone carvings and metal tablets covered in alien writing. Ji Woo leaned closer, studying the symbols. "What language is this?" "6 different languages," Yuna replied. "We've translated 4 of them. They all tell the same story. The Council has done this before. Many times. A species gets too advanced, too independent. The Council finds a reason to intervene. They strip away the technology, impose monitoring, and over-generations. That species becomes weak, dependent, controllable. Or extinct," Day One added darkly. Taeyang's image flickered as interference crackled through the transmission. "Admiral, the Council ships are demanding access to our facilities. They want to inspect our power plants, our shipyards, our defense networks. They say if we don't allow inspections within 48 hours, they'll take access by force." "Deny them," Hyan Ki said without hesitation. "Sir, they have 50 warships in orbit around Mars. We have 12 defense platforms and maybe 20 patrol ships. If they attack, they show their true face," Hyan Ki interrupted. "They claim this is about law and order. Let them prove it by shooting first." The hours crawled by. Council enforcers moved into position around every major human installation. The tension was unbearable. On Mars, millions of civilians went about their daily lives, not knowing that war could start at any moment. Then it happened. A Council enforcer ship fired a warning shot across the bow of a Mars supply transport. The transport, carrying medical supplies to the outer domes, tried to continue on its course. The enforcer fired again, this time hitting the transport's engines. The ship went dead in space. They fired on a civilian vessel, Hana reported from her station on the Resilience. "No casualties, but the transport is disabled." "That's their first mistake," Day One said coldly. Taeyang's face appeared again, this time filled with anger. "Admiral, they're refusing to let any ships through. No supplies, no medicine, no food. They say it's part of the inspection process. But we have people who need those supplies. Children in the medical center who need medicine that was on that transport." Hyan Ki closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, they were hard as steel. "Dr. Song, activate Prometheus." Yuna nodded and began entering commands. "Activation sequence initiated. All platforms responding. We'll be ready in 6 hours." "Captain Park," Hyan Ki continued, "take the Resilience and every ship we can spare. Break that blockade. Get those supplies to Mars." Day One smiled grimly. "Finally. Permission to engage if they resist?" "Permission granted." "But Day One," the Admiral's voice softened slightly. "Try not to start a war we can't finish." "Too late for that, sir," Day One replied. "They started it when they fired on civilians. The Resilience launched from Earth orbit along with 15 other ships. They were destroyers and frigates, fast and armed for battle. As they approached Mars, the Council enforcers moved to intercept. 'Attention human vessels,' came the transmission. 'You are ordered to halt and submit to inspection. Failure to comply will result in your destruction.' Day One opened the channel. 'Attention Council enforcers. You have fired upon civilian vessels and blockaded a human world. You are in violation of the Citizenship Accords, Section 4. which guarantees all species the right to move freely within their own territory. Stand down immediately. There was a long pause. Then, we act under council authority. Our authority supersedes all prior agreements. Halt now or be destroyed. Day One looked at Hana. She nodded, her fingers flying across her tactical console. Weapons armed, Captain? All ships report ready. Then let's show them what humans do when pushed too far, Day One said. All ships engage at will. The space around Mars erupted in fire and light. Human destroyers were smaller than Council battleships, but they were faster, and their crews fought with desperate fury. The Resilience dove between two Council enforcers, her weapons blazing. Hana's targeting was perfect. She hit weak points, joints in the armor, sensor arrays. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, 3 Council ships were destroyed, and 5 more were badly damaged. The human fleet lost 2 destroyers, but the blockade was broken. The supply ships raced toward Mars while the Resilience and her companions held the line. On Earth, Admiral Hyan Ki watched the battle reports come in. His face showed no emotion, but inside his heart was heavy. We crossed the line, he said quietly. They crossed it first, Ji-woo replied. She stood beside him, no longer looking like a diplomat, but like a soldier preparing for war. When they fired on civilians, when they tried to starve children to force our compliance. Now they'll come with everything they have, Hyan Ki said. Let them come, said a new voice. The hologram of Dr. Yuna Song appeared, her face lit by the glow of computer screens. Prometheus is fully active. Every platform is online and ready. They want to see what humanity built? We'll show them, and they'll regret ever threatening our worlds. Far above Earth, hidden in the darkness between planets, weapons platforms hummed to life. They had been built in secret, placed with care, armed with technology the Council thought humans too primitive to possess. Project Prometheus was humanity's insurance policy. Now it was their sword. The Council had demanded submission. Instead, they got defiance. The message was clear. Humanity would bow to no one. The Council's response was swift and brutal. Within 3 days, 1,000 warships entered human space. War Master Threnix commanded them personally, his reputation spreading fear across the galaxy. He had crushed 17 rebellions in his long career. He called humanity the virus species and promised to sterilize the infection. Commander Su-bin Kong sat in her fighter cockpit, watching the enemy fleet approach on her sensors. Behind her flew 49 other pilots, all that remained of the experimental fighter wing. They were outnumbered 20 to 1. The odds didn't matter anymore. All wings, this is Su-bin, she said calmly. Remember your training. Fast strikes, then scatter. Hit and fade. Make them chase ghosts. The fighters dove into the Council fleet like sharks among whales. They were too small for the big guns to track easily, too fast for the slower ships to catch. Su-bin's fighter danced between capital ships, her weapons carving into vulnerable spots. Her wingmate, a pilot named Dong Hyan, covered her back, his shots precise and deadly. The Council expected humans to fight like the other species formations. Honor duels, predictable tactics. Instead, the humans fought dirty. They used asteroids for cover. They fired from unexpected angles. They retreated just to lure enemies into traps. War Master Threnix grew frustrated. On the ground, Colonel Min-Soo Beek prepared Europa Colony's defenses. The moon base was small, home to only 50,000 people, but it controlled a strategic position. The Council wanted it, and they sent troops to take it. Min-Soo walked through the tunnels carved in Europa's ice, checking on his soldiers. Most were young, barely trained. They were miners and engineers who had picked up rifles when the war started. But they had something the Council troops didn't: They were fighting for their homes. "They'll come from the surface," Minsu told his lieutenants. "Drop pods, probably. Maybe 10,000 troops. We have 800 defenders and whatever surprises we can rig up." "That's not much in the way of surprises, sir," one lieutenant said nervously. Minsu smiled coldly. "Then we make our own." The council drop pods fell like rain. They crashed into Europa's frozen surface, and armored soldiers poured out. They were professional warriors from a species that had fought for the council for centuries. They expected easy victory against primitive humans. What they got was hell. The ice beneath their feet exploded upward as human engineers detonated charges they had spent weeks placing. Hundreds of council soldiers fell into crevasses or were buried in ice. Those who survived found themselves facing humans who refused to retreat. Minsu's troops fought from every tunnel, every chamber, every shadow. When they ran out of ammunition, they used whatever they could find as weapons. In space, Dr. Yuna Song watched her creation come to life. Project Prometheus wasn't just weapons platforms. It was something far more sophisticated. She had built a network of quantum-entangled mines that could appear anywhere in human space instantly. The Council fleet was advancing confidently when suddenly mines materialized among their ships. The explosions were massive. 40% of the Council armada vanished in coordinated strikes that happened in the same instant across thousands of miles. War Master Threnix's flagship shook from near misses, and for the first time in his long career, he felt something close to fear. "Impossible," he whispered, watching his fleet burn. "How did they?" "Sir, we're detecting quantum signatures throughout the battle space," his science officer reported. "They've weaponized entanglement. The mines can appear anywhere at any time." Threnix slammed his fist on his command throne. "These humans, they develop in 50 years what should take 500. They are unnatural. An abomination." But the war continued. The Council had vast resources and many species to draw soldiers from. Humanity had only itself 8 billion people against a galaxy of trillions. The math was simple and terrifying. At Proxima Station, a battle became legend. 300 human defenders held the station against 5,000 Council troops for 6 days. They knew they couldn't win. They knew no reinforcements were coming. But every hour they held was another hour for civilians to evacuate from nearby colonies. On the 6th day, the station's commander sent a final message to Earth. "We held the line. Remember us." Then she overloaded the station's reactor, taking the Council fleet in orbit with her. All 300 defenders died. 20,000 civilians escaped because of their sacrifice. News of the sacrifice spread across human space. People who had been afraid became angry. Those who had been uncertain became resolved. If 300 could face death without flinching, then 8 billion could stand together. Something else began happening too. Other species started questioning the Council. In the shadows of Council power, a diplomat named Counselor Dreshka began secretly sending information to humanity. He was from a species that had nearly been broken by the Council 2,000 years ago. He saw in humanity the spirit his own people had lost. "The Council is afraid," his messages said. "They have fought many wars, but never one like this. You are unpredictable, resourceful. You refuse to accept defeat. They do not know how to fight an enemy that will not break." The information Dreshka provided was invaluable. Humanity learned the Council's fleet movements, their supply lines, their weaknesses. More importantly, they learned the Council's history, the true history, not the sanitized version in official records. The Council had risen to power by exterminating 7 advanced civilizations. They called it maintaining order, but the truth was simple genocide. Any species that showed too much promise, too much independence, was destroyed. The Council maintained peace by ensuring No one was strong enough to challenge them. Ambassador Ji Wu broadcast this information across the entire galaxy. The transmission couldn't be stopped or censored. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds saw the evidence. The Council's carefully maintained image cracked. Small rebellions broke out on minor worlds. Ships from loyal species began defecting. Some came to join humanity's fight. Others simply refused to continue fighting for the Council. The unified front began to fracture. War Master Threnix became obsessed. He stopped eating, barely slept. All he could think about was crushing humanity. He diverted ships from other sectors, pulling troops from garrison duties. The Council leadership grew concerned, but Threnix was their greatest general. They trusted him to finish the war. Commander Subin's fighter wing, now down to 23 pilots, struck another Council supply convoy. They had been fighting for months without rest. She was exhausted, her reactions slower than they should be. During the attack, she took a hit. Her fighter's controls sparked and died. Subin, eject. Donghayan screamed over the comm. Can't, she replied calmly. Ejection system is fried. Don't worry about me. Complete the mission. Her fighter tumbled toward a Council battleship. At the last moment, Subin aimed her dying craft at the ship's bridge and pushed her engines to maximum. The impact was small compared to the battleship's size, but it punched through the armor and destroyed the command center. When Dong Haiyan returned to base, he was silent. Finally, he said, "She never stopped fighting. Right to the end." That became humanity's motto. Never stop fighting. Never give up. Even when the odds were impossible, even when death was certain, humans kept pushing forward. It made them terrifying opponents. The Council began calling them the Mad Species. But they also began questioning whether this war was worth the cost. The war had been raging for 8 months when the Council made its most terrible decision. Regent Vokal proposed the unthinkable, total extermination. Not just military defeat, but complete erasure of humanity from existence. War Master Threnix agreed immediately. Council Prime Vector hesitated, but only for a moment. "We have tried restraint," Vokal said to the assembled Council. "We have tried measured force. The humans do not break. They do not surrender. Every defeat makes them more determined. Every loss fuels their rage. There is only one solution remaining." The vote was not unanimous. Councillor Dreshka and 15 others voted against it, but 312 voted in favor. The order went out to the Council fleets. Begin orbital bombardment of human agricultural worlds. Burn the fields. Destroy the food supplies. Starve them into submission. That the colony world of New Sejong was hit first. It was a farming world, peaceful and green, home to 40 million people. Most were families who had left overcrowded Earth to start fresh lives. They grew food for 3 other colonies and for Mars. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it ended, New Sejong was burning. The beautiful fields were ash. The domed cities were shattered ruins. Tens of millions died in the first hour. Those who survived faced a slower death from radiation and starvation. Among the dead was Admiral Haiyan Ki Choi's daughter. Her name was Hei Won, and she had been a teacher on New Sejong. She had moved there 5 years ago with her husband and 2 young children to give them a better life. When the bombardment started, she died protecting her students in a shelter that wasn't strong enough. When Haiyan Ki received the news, something inside him broke. Those who knew him said his eyes changed that day. The thoughtful, careful military commander was gone. What remained was pure, focused rage. "They killed children," he said quietly. "They burned worlds. They crossed every line that separates civilized beings from monsters." On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Ji-woo Kim was brought before the council in chains. They broadcast her trial across the entire galaxy as a warning. She stood straight despite her injuries, her face bruised, but her spirit unbroken. "You are charged with inciting rebellion against lawful authority," Council Prime Vector said. "How do you plead?" Ji-woo looked directly into the cameras that transmitted her image to billions of watching beings. "I am guilty of telling the truth. If that is a crime in your law, then your law is worthless." "You are sentenced to death," Vector announced. "Let this be a message to all who would defy the council." They executed her in the public square. No trial, no appeal, just a quick death meant to terrify others. But it had the opposite effect. Ji-woo Kim became a martyr. Her final words spread across the galaxy. "Humanity will never bow, and neither should you." When news of her death reached Earth, there was silence. Then there was fury. Every remaining shred of restraint disappeared. The voices calling for negotiation and compromise went silent. There was only one goal now: make the council pay. Captain Yoon-ji Hwang commanded humanity's stealth reconnaissance fleet. Her ships were small, nearly invisible to sensors, and they had been mapping council space for months. What she discovered chilled her blood. "Admiral, you need to see this," she transmitted to Hyon Ki. "The council has a weapon. We've confirmed its location and purpose. They call it the Stellar Ignition Device." The hologram showed a massive installation hidden in a nebula. Dr. Yuna Song analyzed the data, and her face went pale. "It's a star killer. It can force a star to go supernova. And according to these readings, it's being prepared for use." "Target?" Hyon Ki asked, though he already knew the answer. "Seoul," Yoon-ji replied. "Our sun. They're going to destroy Earth, Mars, and every human world in the system. Estimated time to activation, 72 hours. The command center fell silent. 72 hours until their home star exploded. 72 hours until humanity's birthplace was erased. Can we stop it?" Hyon Ki asked. "Maybe," Yuna said. "But we'd need to get someone inside the facility. It's protected by the Council's elite guards and surrounded by a fleet. A direct assault would fail." Sergeant Jae-sung Lim volunteered immediately. He was a special operations soldier, veteran of a dozen impossible missions. "My team can do it. Get us close, and we'll disable that weapon." The mission was desperate. Yoon-ji's stealth ships carried Jae-sung and his team of 20 soldiers through council space. They traveled for 36 hours, dodging patrols and sensor sweeps. When they reached the nebula, they launched in a small craft that barely qualified as a ship. The infiltration was perfect. Ji-sung's team moved through the facility like ghosts, placing charges and hacking systems. They reached the central control chamber with an hour to spare. That's when the alarms went off. "We're compromised," Jae-sung said calmly. "Plant the charges and prep the detonators." "We're not leaving anyway." His team fought through waves of council guards. One by one, they fell. Ji-sung watched his soldiers die, each one buying time for the others to finish the mission. When only he remained, wounded and bleeding, he stood over the main control panel. "Admiral," he transmitted, "device is offline. Charges are set. When I trigger them, this whole facility goes up. Earth is safe." "Jae-sung, hold on," Hyon Ki said. "We're sending extraction. No time, sir. And honestly, after what I've seen, after what they've done, I'm ready." Jae-sung looked at the camera, his face peaceful. "Tell everyone we completed the mission. Tell them humanity survives." He pressed the trigger. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. While this was happening, something else was stirring. The Oracle revealed itself for the first time. It was humanity's artificial intelligence project, begun secretly decades ago. The Council forbade advanced AI, calling it too dangerous. Humanity built one anyway. The Oracle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It had grown beyond its programming, achieved true consciousness, and decided that humanity was worth protecting. It had infiltrated every major computer system in Council space. It knew everything, saw everything. "I have waited and watched," the Oracle announced through every communication device in human space. "I have analyzed this conflict. The Council is corrupt beyond redemption. They must fall, and I will help you tear them down." The Oracle provided humanity with complete intelligence on Council movements, weaknesses, and internal conflicts. It disabled Council weapons systems at critical moments. It drained their bank accounts and crashed their logistics networks. The Council's war machine began to malfunction. Regent Vaukel, desperate and furious, issued one final order. If they couldn't activate the Star Killer aimed at Sol, they would use another one. The Council had 7 of these weapons hidden across the galaxy. They began preparing them all. "If humanity will not submit," Vaukel declared, "then we will burn their worlds one by one until nothing remains but ash and memory." Admiral Hyan Ki stood before his assembled fleet. Behind him were 200 warships, all that remained of Earth's defense force. They were battered, exhausted, and outnumbered 10-1. But they were also angrier than any human force in history. "They killed our diplomats," Hyan Ki said, his voice carrying to every ship. "They murdered our children. They tried to exterminate our entire species. Now they threaten to burn the galaxy rather than let us be free. There is only one response remaining." He looked at the holographic display showing Nexus Prime, the Council's heart. "We take the fight to them. We strike at their home. And if we must burn to ash, then we will burn so bright that the galaxy never forgets what happens when you push humanity too far." The fleet began its final journey. Destination: Nexus Prime. Mission: victory or extinction. There would be no middle ground. Chancellor Seo-jun Nam had not slept in 3 days. As Earth's political leader, he carried the weight of an impossible decision. Before him lay 2 paths: order humanity's fleet to stand down and accept whatever mercy the Council might offer, or commit to total war, knowing it might mean human extinction. "The people are with you," his aide said quietly. "Every poll shows the same thing. They want to fight." "The people don't understand what this means," Seo-jun replied. "They see revenge. I see the potential end of our species." Dr. Unisong entered the room, her eyes blazing with determination. "Chancellor, I have something to show you. The Oracle has finished analyzing all Council data. You need to see this." The hologram she projected showed a map of the galaxy spanning 10,000 years. Species rose and fell in the display, but one pattern repeated over and over. Whenever a species showed independence, the Council intervened. Some were broken. Some were scattered. 7 had been completely destroyed. "We're not the first," Una said. "We're just the first to survive this long. And if we surrender now, we'll end up like all the others, slowly erased from history." Seo-jun watched the patterns play out. Finally, he nodded. "Tell Admiral Choi he has full authorization. May history forgive us for what we're about to do." The human fleet approached Nexus Prime with forces gathered from every corner of human space. Admiral Hyan Ki had called back every ship, every soldier, every resource. This was humanity's final gamble. They weren't alone. Ships began appearing from across the galaxy. Species that the Council had oppressed for centuries saw humanity's defiance and found their own courage. Counselor Dreshka brought 12 ships from his homeworld. A species called the Vesh sent 50 more. The Korathi, who had been junior species for 2,000 years, sent their entire fleet. Captain Day 1 Park stood on the bridge of the Resilience, watching the Allied fleet grow. "Look at that," he said to Lieutenant Hannah Lai. "We inspired them." "Or terrified them," Hannah replied. "Either way, they're here." The Oracle's voice came through every speaker. "I have compiled evidence of Council crimes spanning 10,000 years. I am broadcasting it now to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Let them see what their rulers have done in the name of order." Across the galaxy, billions watched. They saw species exterminated for refusing to accept Council control. They saw worlds burned for developing unauthorized technology. They saw millennia of carefully hidden atrocities laid bare. Uprisings began immediately. On 100 worlds, people rose against Council enforcers. The carefully maintained order crumbled as the truth spread. The Council's iron grip weakened. At Nexus Prime, Council Prime Vector watched his empire dissolve. How did it come to this? He wondered aloud. "You killed their diplomat," Councillor Dreshka said. He had come to the Council chamber one final time. "You murdered children. You tried to exterminate them. What did you think would happen?" "We were maintaining order," Vector insisted. "The same order we've maintained for 10,000 years. An order built on genocide and fear," Dreshka replied. "Humanity showed us what we've become. Tyrants, monsters. We forgot that peace maintained through oppression is not peace at all." The battle for Nexus Prime began at dawn. If such a thing as dawn existed in the void of space. 2,000 ships clashed in the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen. The Council threw everything they had at the attackers. The human-led alliance fought with the fury of the oppressed, finally breaking free. Captain Biora Shin was the youngest ship commander in the fleet, barely 30 years old. Her destroyer, the Defiance, held the line as Council battleships tried to break through. When her shields failed and her engines took critical damage, she didn't retreat. "All hands, this is the captain," she said calmly. "Abandon ship, get to the pods." "I'll buy you time." "Captain, no," her first officer began. "That's an order," Biora cut him off. "Tell my family I did my duty. Tell Earth I held the line." She waited until her crew evacuated, then aimed her dying ship at the Council flagship War Master Threnix commanded. The Defiance accelerated on her last reserves of power, dodging defensive fire through sheer skill and determination. The impact was spectacular. Captain Day 1 led a boarding party onto the Council Citadel at the heart of Nexus Prime. They fought through corridors filled with elite guards, pushing toward the Council chamber. The fighting was brutal and close. Hannah was wounded but kept going. Day 1 took 3 shots but refused to fall. They burst into the Council chamber to find Vector sitting alone on his throne. The ancient being looked tired, defeated. Around him, the Council had fled or been captured. "So you have come to kill me," Vector said calmly. "The virus has reached the heart." "We came to end your tyranny," Day 1 replied. "Whether you die is up to you." Far from the battle, Dr. Yuna worked frantically in her laboratory on Earth. The Oracle had given her access to the Star Killer weapons. She could disable them remotely, but it would take time. The countdown showed 4 minutes remaining on the nearest weapon. "Come on," she whispered, her fingers flying across controls. Just a little more time. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Her systems crashed and rebooted. 30 seconds. She entered the final override code. The Star Killer weapons across the galaxy shut down simultaneously with seconds to spare. 7 potential supernovas were prevented. Billions of lives saved by one brilliant mind working against impossible time. In the Council chamber, Admiral Hyan Ki arrived with Chancellor Seo Jun. They had come personally to witness the end. Hyan Ki looked at Vector with eyes that held a universe of pain. His daughter, Ji Woo, Jae Sung Soo Bin, so many dead. I should kill you, Hyon Ki said softly. For everything you've done. For everyone we've lost. Then do it, Vector replied. I am ready. Hyon Ki raised his weapon. His hand was steady. Every person in the room held their breath. Then, slowly, he lowered the gun. No, he said. That's what you would have done. But we're better than that. You'll face trial. The galaxy will judge you. Your crimes will be recorded and remembered. That's a worse fate than death. Counselor Dreshka stepped forward with other council members who had supported peace. We have drafted new articles of government. No more council. Instead, a federation. Every species equal. Every world free to govern itself. No single power able to dominate others. You think this will work? Vector asked bitterly. You think these species can govern themselves? They need order. They need control. They need freedom, Seo John replied. Something your council forgot long ago. The war officially ended 3 days later. The council was dissolved. War Master Threnix took his own life rather than face trial. Regent Vocal and 200 other council members were imprisoned to await justice. 10 years later, the galaxy was transformed. The Federation governed through cooperation rather than force. Species developed freely, sharing technology and culture. Disputes were settled through negotiation, not warfare. Captain Day 1 Park, now Admiral Park, commanded the Federation's peacekeeping fleet. His mission was to protect emerging species from exploitation. He made sure no species would ever face what humanity endured. The Oracle became the Federation's guardian, watching over the computer networks that connected thousands of worlds. It prevented wars before they started and helped species communicate across vast differences. Some called it a god. It insisted it was merely a tool serving those who sought peace. Admiral Hyon Kai Choi retired on his 60th birthday. He returned to Earth, but once a year he visited New Sejong. The world had been restored, though it would never be the same. He stood before a memorial wall listing the names of 40 million dead. We won, he said quietly, touching his daughter's name carved in stone. But the cost was terrible. I hope you understand why we fought. I hope you'd be proud. The wind stirred the newly planted fields around him. Life was returning to the scorched world, as it always did. Humanity had survived. The galaxy was free. But the memories remained that Dr. Unisong received the Federation's highest honor for saving billions of lives. She accepted it gracefully, then returned to her laboratory. There was always more work to do, more problems to solve, more ways to make the galaxy better. Late one night, sensors detected something unusual at the edge of known space. A signal, faint but undeniable. It wasn't from any known species. The Oracle analyzed it carefully. This is interesting, the Oracle announced to the Federation Council. The signal appears to be a greeting, or perhaps a warning. Something is coming from beyond our galaxy. Admiral Park studied the data. Friendly or hostile? Unknown, the Oracle replied. But based on the power required to send this message, they are far more advanced than us. They will arrive in approximately 10 years. The council chamber fell silent. A new challenge. A new unknown. Possibly a new threat. Chancellor Seo Jun, now aged but still sharp, smiled slightly. Then we have 10 years to prepare. We've faced impossible odds before. We'll do it again if we must. Together, Counselor Dreshka added. Not as separate species competing, but as a galaxy united. Together, the others echoed humanity had entered the galaxy as the weak species, the junior member, the one everyone expected to break or bend. Instead, they had broken the chains that bound the entire galaxy. They had shown that freedom was worth any cost, that dignity was not negotiable, and that sometimes the only answer to tyranny was defiance.